Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Wallace, and I'm an academic counselor and student success advocate for the RN-BSN program here at East Carolina University. Today, I'm joined with several of our students for a student panel so we can discuss some of the aspects of the program to help you acclimate and get used to what it's going to be like as a student here at East Carolina. I'm going to ask each of our students to introduce themselves, let you know what program or what phase of the program they're in, and then also share why they decided to come to ECU for their education.
My name is Lori Wilford, and I am a third semester BSN student here at ECU. I decided on the RN to BSN program because I was already an employee with ECU, so it wasn't even a question that I was going to go back to school. This would be where I would go.
Okay. My name is Caitlin Kinser, and I am duly enrolled in the RIBN program as well as the RN to BSN program here at East Carolina University. The RIBN program is a duly enrolled program where you obtain your RN in 2 years from an associate degree program, and then you're concurrently enrolled at East Carolina Online to obtain your BSN. I am entering my third semester in the RN to BSN program, and am currently working as an RN.
Good day, I'm Wendy Murphy. I am entering my 4th semester and will graduate at the end of it. I chose ECU for the RN to BSN program partly because of its reputation, also because I can do it fully online. It was a bonus to me that I live in the area, so that just made it easy if I needed something to pop over to the College of Nursing. It's been an incredible experience, more than I expected as far as the learning, and I'm thrilled that I did this.
I'm Bryn Whitford. I'm a recent alumnus of the ECU College of Nursing RN to BSN program. I have been a nurse for many years and have always wanted to return to get my BSN, and knew that when I would do it, I would always go to ECU. I considered other options, but I guess my heart's purple.
Great, thank you, ladies.
I would also say I looked at other online programs, but ECU also offers the best value. For the excellence of the program, you also cannot beat the value.
Yeah. That's a really good point, and we're very pleased that we get several notifications a year that will say that we're a top program, best value program, so we are recognized nationally as well as in the area for being a very good value program. And we'll speak a little bit more about resources too, but I feel like we're a program that offers a lot of extra resources that a lot of our competitors don't. And so hopefully that helps make the student process one that's easy and one that's pleasant for you while you're a student here. One of the first questions I had for all of y'all is one I know that we hear a lot at orientation. So we'll have students that are used to being busy. Most of our students are working full-time. A lot of them will have families, spouses, obligations in their community, and now they're going to be a student. So what perspective would you have on how to balance those multiple roles that you have? So how did you mediate being a parent as well as a spouse, working, and now a student?
I would just say that most women, and not that men don't as well, because men are husbands and fathers, they balance their work, home life. Most of us already are balancing our work, home, activity life, and it's just another facet of that. You're just adding one more thing. You do have to keep very organized, but it's not something that you're already not doing, especially if you have children and other activities. You're just adding one more thing. So it's not a total departure from what you're already doing. You're just adding a new facet.
I think to kind of tag on to what Wendy said, I think it has to be a priority, just as your family life, you know, your spiritual life, your work life. so does your school life have to take precedence. And, you know, when the faculty advises you and gives you tips to, you know, schedule your classes, schedule your tests, you know, kind of like dates in your calendar, you really need to do that because
Absolutely.
you can't afford to drop the ball at any point in time. I mean, it runs real smoothly, and if you're organized and if you prioritize, you know, it's smooth sailing. But if not, you can have a kind of bumpy journey. There's a ton of resources out there, not only that the faculty provides to you, online resources, you know, if you're not the most skilled, you know, with computers, there's tutorials, there's, you know, the library, the people that work there are excellent for searching out articles. I mean, it's just, the resources are endless. And like Wendy said, you know, it was a good experience.
And I would say that, you know, Bren and I obviously are maybe a good example of your older learner. And there are things that I certainly had to learn. I wasn't familiar with Blackboard, the ECU.
Pirate port, all that good
Yes,
stuff.
but that learning curve is kind of steep, but it's not hard. But as Bren was saying about your priorities, that school has to be a priority. But it's not that school has to be a priority every moment and that you don't get to do anything else with your life or enjoy your family. As she said, as long as you're organized about when things are due, then it is smooth sailing, and you can choose what you do when, as long as you know when things are due and you plan accordingly. It is not a priority every minute,
No.
and other things can be a priority at the appropriate time.
I love that. I liked that you both used the word priority, because I think that's really key, right? It's something that you have to elevate to being very important. You can't let it go by the wayside. But just like other aspects of your life that are important, it can be incorporated. Things might have to be adjusted, moved around. But if it's something that you're very intentional about, you can be successful. It's great. All right, so y'all brought up some practical skills. That might be a good transition to what are some practical tips or strategies you have? So you kind of mentioned calendar. I'd love for you guys to dive more into that, or if there were other things that you utilized that were good strategies for you to acclimate from non-school to then being a student.
For me, it was, since back in the day, I would think that I would have to study and cram, and whenever you're in this program, it's not testing per se, it's like a process, or it's like cooking with love is what I would call it as. But I study with love so that if I'm not really digging the whole writing a paper or thinking of an assignment, I'm doing other things, which is then helping build on my final project. But I'm either reading an article, I'm thinking about a topic that at work that I could apply towards school, I'm thinking about things that I've learned in school that I can apply towards my job. So, and like Wendy said, it's not a constant, it's just you would plan it just like you would plan anything in your life. You just have to guarantee, if you spend an hour here, then you're going to spend an hour. If you don't make it at the time you wanted, you're not going to do anything else to schedule more until you get that hour in. So basically scheduling, prioritizing, I guess, like you said.
I think, too, along with that prioritizing, you have to take care of you. You know, take time to exercise, take time for family, take time for bubble baths, or whatever it is that you're, you know, your zen, bring you down moment. It's very important. And then I know what was helpful was the, you know, emails you would send out, like with the TED Talks or the self-evaluations you could do. And it really makes you kind of think, oh, maybe I'm not, you know, I've scheduled this paper's due and I have to work this hour at work and this, but oh, have I taken time to do something for me, a pedicure or, you know. So it's real important to take care of you and prioritize you too, just like you're prioritizing everything else.
Yeah.
And
What about you, Caitlin? I know as a ribbon student, you're balancing multiple roles with having been a recent graduate of your community college, now transitioning to work and this program. So I'm sure you've had to do several things to help be successful.
Found to be the most helpful right now, since I've just started my job, I've tried to plan accordingly with my, once I get my syllabus and my calendar for my assignments, I get my work schedule and I map out what to do when. If I'm working that day, I need to make sure that I give extra time prior to that. If I know that I'm working and then there's double assignments or something like that, I always email the professor and just kind of touch base with them, ask them, you know, if there's any way that I could extend this particular assignment, or just kind of let them know my situation. And everyone has been so helpful. You know, they work with you. They understand that we are in the workforce. We are, you know, new to the program. They're just very helpful. So just make sure that you take the time to talk to them and know that they are there for you. They're not inaccessible just because you're online. So just make sure you take advantage of the emails. Some of my professors even will do like video chatting with you. If you're having an issue with understanding something, they're more than happy to kind of give you your own personal lecture online. So that's great too.
I love that you brought up communication, because that's something we typically talk a lot about at orientation,
Right.
is communicate. And just like you said, I feel like from the staff faculty perspective, we're so eager to help, but if we don't know, we can't help.
Exactly.
Could some of you maybe share some of your perspective on the faculty? Because you mentioned, do you find them to be helpful? Were they accessible to you? You know, it's just a little bit of your experience with our faculty.
It is, as you say, they talk a lot about communication in orientation. And to your point, the follow-through is just as promised. So they are not just saying that. They mean, if you have an issue, please reach out. We can't help you if we don't know. They do realize that 99% of the students are working and have families, and they are in your corner and they want you to be successful. And as you said, they can't help you if they don't know, and are very willing to work with you. They just need to know. They can't help you in hindsight. Once the assignment is past due, it's late. That mapping out and seeing what you have coming up to do with your work schedule and other obligations, and reaching out beforehand is key. Communication is really a big deal, and the professors are not kidding when they say they want to communicate with you. They really do. They really do.
For the most part, at the beginning, like Caitlin mentioned, at the beginning of each semester, you know, you get your syllabus, you get somewhat of a biography and a letter from, you know, each of your professors or instructors. They have their home phone number, their cell phone number, when it's convenient, how long you can expect for a follow-up or feedback to your question. I mean, they make themselves available. Like Wendy said, just because you're online, you don't have that barrier that you can't see them face to face. You can see them face to face. I mean, I would willfully say that any of the professors that I had during my course of study, if I felt like it would benefit me to meet in person, they would have certainly tried to accommodate. They're very accommodating, you know, because life does throw you some curveballs. Even, you know, in the best plan, you know, you have aging parents sometimes, you have childcare issues, you have many things.
Work
but
deadlines,
if
things
you
come up.
keep the lines of communication open, you'll find that they are very accepting and as accommodating as they can be.
And I would love to jump back to something that Bryn said earlier. Part of it, taking time for yourself in the course, part of what I have so enjoyed about the curriculum, and as you said, is not so much studying to regurgitate it on a test. It is such a learning process, and part of that learning process is learning about yourself during that process. Would you not agree? And so I feel selfishly a little bit like the whole curriculum has taught me a lot about myself, that even in writing a paper, or that process of writing where you do a little bit and you let it rest, or you're thinking about it, or you're researching more, you're coming back and editing. In that whole process, I'm also learning so much more about myself, even at this mature age, that's been an unexpected part, and part of that self-growth, self-awareness is the feedback that you get from the professors and that relationship.
Yeah, I loved when you said that. I know from having spoken to you before about really kind of having a perspective shift, right? Compared to I need to get this done, to really allowing this to be an enriching experience. And I know you guys have all kind of shared in different conversations we have of how it has affected you professionally and personally, and how much you've learned through this process of being a student. I think that's something that's really neat. Good.
And now, and I know you now with the beginning work experience, you will find so much, you will think back to this and think, oh yeah, this
Right.
is that, and even some of us with a little more experience, we think back now to some experience and can apply it, unlike when you're first in nursing school and it's all theoretical. Now it's so applicable. So
Right.
it's not just that, like I said, memorization. It is also applicable to real life situations, which just makes it so much more interesting.
For so many years, and I've been a nurse for 33 years
me too.
prior to this. I always thought that it was just going to be a checkbox. You know, that I knew I eventually needed to get my BSN, and eventually my employer said to remain in leadership, you're going to need to get your BSN, eventually your MSN. So I decided this was the time, but, you know, immediately after that first semester, it wasn't just a check in the box. I could feel and see myself growing and just taking on an entirely different perspective. It's affected my communication with my upper leadership, as well as the team that works under me, and just the growth that I've experienced both personally and professionally is priceless. That I would have never had I not completed the RN to BSN program, despite 20 years leadership.
Amen. And same, I mean, we've been nurses about the same time, and I would have said, I'm a good nurse. And exactly like this, and I really am doing this for me. I didn't have work tell me I needed to. I've always wanted to, and I thought it's now or never. I'm not going to get any smarter. I better go ahead. But would say the same, that it has made me an even better nurse with just this more, I don't want to say holistic view of nursing, or just enriched and expanded my view of nursing that I didn't realize I was missing.
So some of you have shared that you've been working for a period of time, a while outside of being a student. So can you talk a little bit, because we have a lot of our students that are coming back to school now after being out for a while. Can you talk a little bit about the adjustment from being an employee to now back a student, sometimes for a decade or two or three? So Lori, do you have anything you'd share on that topic?
I would say once someone told me this that was in this program before, and I held on to it so much so that I'm going to spread it too. The hardest part of this program was deciding to participate. Once you're in, and if you take on the attitude that this is, quitting's not an option, it's not even a consideration, it becomes, well, I need to exercise. Exercising would make me healthier. Have I formalized that commitment yet? No. However, I am committed to school. I'm helping fund it. My children expect me to do it. I'm also serving as a role model to them. I cannot have a meltdown at the kitchen table over math homework if I'm not willing to let them witness Mom having a meltdown over her assignment. So that part, if you just do it. Once you decide you're going to do it, you're going to finish it. That's the only, there's no magic to it. You just commit.
I think it's easier, honestly, going back with a little maybe life wisdom and work experience because we kind of know what it takes. A little easier to prioritize, maybe. My kids thought it was funny because all of our kids were in college or grad school, so they kind of chuckled, with mom in school until my grades were better than theirs, and then it wasn't as funny. But anyway, you're right, Lori, about just the hardest part was deciding to go back. Then once you're in it, it's not hard to stay in it and do it. I think. What do you think, Brenda?
I think commitment, like Lori said, you have to commit, but then you have to be accountable, and you really gotta steer the course with your journey. It's not something that, after I think my first semester, I wanted to exceed. I was participating in tuition reimbursement with my employer, so I mean there was a little bit of pressure there. I did not expect to do as well as I did, and I'm very proud that I did, but it's something that you've once you set your mind to it, you have to commit, you have to be accountable, and you have to groom it and feed it and
Love it.
Like you said, the accountability and the support. And you talk about being a role model for your children. I was one of those children that watched my mom go back to school. And so she graduated with her bachelor's degree when I was a teenager, and then she got her master's in her 50s. And that definitely had an impact on me as a young student and as a young person watching my mom accomplish her goals. And that instilled something in me. And then it helps to have that support. If they know you're struggling, they can be a support to you, and vice versa. You've now lived through and you can help support that too. So I think there's a theme of communicating, supporting, right? Whether the support comes from your faculty or from your work or from your family.
And I think that's the thing, is before you decide to go, and you need to have the conversation with your employer, with your family, because some things may have to go. You don't add certain things to the day. So in a way, it's, when I'm home, do I want to do my laundry? Oh, sorry, children and husband, I have homework to do. You might have to do this. And so therefore it's teaching them more responsibility and accountability by having me not having the luxury of hovering helicopter momming over them.
That's good for everybody. I
Yeah.
think.
I call that creative
Win-win,
parenting.
yes.
We used to do pizza Mondays when I was a student and I was a mom and working, and I was like, we're going to turn this night into fun, but really it's called Mom Doesn't Have Time to Cook.
Correct.
Yes.
So we're going to pick some takeout, and we're just going to make this a real fun night. Yeah. But yeah, so you have to sometimes reframe it. But,
Indeed.
yeah, but
Absolutely.
it's definitely doable.
And what better lesson to teach your children than lifelong learning is a great thing. We should never stop learning, whether it's formal like this or informal. That's a beautiful goal to always have.
Great.
I think since I've not been in the workforce long, when I'm doing my discussion boards or interacting with my peers online, I've noticed that it's really great to see the dynamic of the new nurses with the nurses that have been doing it for years and years, because you can kind of bounce ideas off of each other. Things that I see as a new nurse coming in may be very different from their perspective. So with ECU, it's great because you have so many non-traditional students, and then you also have students that are coming straight into the RN-BSN program from an associate degree program, and you get that awesome dynamic between the two. So you're really able to learn a lot from each other, as well as from all of the assignments that you're completing online. So I just think it's a really great opportunity to be involved in this program, because you do get so many different viewpoints, and you're able to apply it in your work. Especially since I don't have much experience, I kind of take some of the things that I've seen and read from some of my different classes, and I try to put that into my practice. And I've noticed that my employer has picked up on certain things that I do, and I'm like, oh, well, I did that because so-and-so said that. So I definitely think that it's a really awesome opportunity to be able to have that kind of interaction.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about this program. I have many favorite aspects, but I love the dynamic of the classroom, Because you're right, our students don't all look one way,
Right.
right? There's a lot of different work experiences, perspectives, schooling, educational things that I think really make it a very dynamic environment to learn. And I think you see that just as that example, yeah.
I think people don't realize when you think online, it's an online program, so that means I'm not going to have any interaction with either my professor or my classmates, but you do, and it's a two-way street. So
Yeah.
those nurses that are new learn from nurses who have experience, but we also learn a lot from the nurses that are just coming out. It's not a one-way street. It is definitely a two-way street. And I think people that are considering online program should realize that you get to know people through those discussion boards, and you do learn a lot from each other.
You know, there's group projects sometimes that you do. Some of it's autonomous and some of it you do very much on your own, but there's, you know, discussion boards, there's group projects sometimes. You know, it's amazing what you can pull. It definitely breaks down the silos that have the potential to form with the way this program is strategically done, I think.
Yeah. So kind of on that same wavelength, we talked a little bit about the faculties as a resource, right? But what other resources did y'all take advantage of while in this program? Or as a student currently in the program?
So our student success advocates that we have
That's right.
are critical, especially as a Ribbon student coming into my third semester of the RN-BSN program. Without you and all the other people that you work with, my success probably would not be near as great as it is. You're so accessible. You always take time to email us. I know at least once a week to kind of just check in, touch base. If you see us struggling, I think is it Starfish online in a course. I like that, you know, you're held accountable in that aspect. I also, you know, if you're doing well, you get a nice little email too, so that's always nice to, you know, celebrate your accomplishments. So that's a great resource, and once again, it goes back to communication. You're there. It's a matter of taking advantage of seeking you out when I need help, or knowing that there's no dumb questions.
Yeah.
The only dumb questions are the ones that you don't ask.
Yeah.
So take the time to, if you have an issue with something that seems silly, but you know it could potentially harm your grade or your success, seek you out, or seek out another student success advocate, because that's what y'all are here for, and you're more than happy to help. And I think that it took me a little while to realize that it was much better to just seek it out than to sit back and try and figure it out myself. So just know that resource is available and use it.
I like that you say that, because I say that to students too. I might not have all the answers, but I will gladly go look for one.
Right.
You know, or I'll find someone that can better answer questions. So I'm glad you found that helpful.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anybody else have resources that they've utilized in the program?
I use my coworkers and friends who have been in the ECU RN-BSN program. And some of them can give me advice as being a student. They can be a sounding board, or they can tell me things about a particular instructor, professor, class. We're all so busy, it becomes an issue of working smart and not working hard, and that's what you're talking about, tapping into your resources versus flailing and stewing around. That's my resource, is people who've blazed the trail ahead of me. Why would I want to sit back there and try to rediscover land and maps that have already been done? So that's what has been helpful to me.
What about the online writing lab? That seems one I hear about a lot, or the library. Did y'all use those resources? Did you find those to be helpful?
I use the library all the time.
That's usually what I hear, yeah.
All the time, but I love it. I mean, there's so much. There's a wealth of information, and I get sometimes a little too interested in my topics, and I end up with way too much information, and I kind of have to call, but it's an incredible resource. And the writing lab, I would say as well, I've only used it when the professor asks us to use it, but the feedback is interesting, and sometimes they make comments that you didn't think of, that you
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought of.
All right, so I have one final question for you all. Since we're doing this video for our students that are just starting the program, what is maybe one piece of advice each of you could share about something you would want to tell them or something you wished you would have known when you started the program?
Okay, well, we'll go left to right. Mine would be, we're working, because we're all work, that's established, right?
Yeah.
We are professional students. We're not professional students, meaning we're going to school forever and ever. We're actually working. And if we're working in a field where we're trying to better ourselves, such as this program, your employer, I work for East Carolina. I'm in the College of Nursing in East Carolina. There are lots of tuition reimbursements, book loans, and all these things. So find out wherever your established employer is, what are the amenities that they make available, because the older you get and the more money that you make in your career, also the bigger your bills are. So at the end of the month, you're just as poor, you just have more things. So that's what I would use, is finding ways financially from my employer to assist and take that pressure and that stress away from school.
That's great. Yeah, I know a lot of our students utilize employee assistance or reimbursement programs as well as scholarships. At East Carolina, we have scholarships specific for nursing students, so we'll be sending out information about that to our students, but that is another resource that students can receive money to help pay for their expenses of being a student.
Correct.
I know that I personally have been very fortunate to receive a scholarship for the program, and without that scholarship, it would have been a lot more difficult for me to proceed in the program, just because I hadn't started my job yet, and just trying to get everything situated with moving out and getting all of that taken care of after graduation. So make sure you take advantage of that. Our student success advocates send out all of that information to us, so take advantage of it. It takes 5 minutes of your time to do the application. Some of them have a couple extra questions that go along with it, but if you know that that's a potential burden you may have to being successful in the program, then just take that extra time and apply, because if you don't apply, you're definitely not going to get that. But in addition, I think my number one piece of advice is just to don't give up, and be proud of yourself for deciding to pursue your BSN, and remember why you started. Like, have your why, and always look back at that when it gets difficult, when you're tired and you've worked 3 night shifts in a row and you can barely hold your eyes open, but you know that you forgot to do your discussion board. So, just make sure you remember why you're doing it, and just take time to reflect on that, and you'll be successful.
I love that, Caitlin. That's an exercise that I've done with students before in orientation, is to spend some quiet time right as you're starting the program to write down why you're doing this. And then have that someplace that you can refer back to. Because we're all going to have those days where it's like, why am I doing that? What is the point? And it's so nice to have that to kind of hold you and reinvigorate you and really motivate you when times do, sometimes get rocky or difficult. So I love that piece of advice. That's great.
We've all had those days as nurses when we wonder, why are we nurses? But we are nurses, and we're strong and we're capable, and so are you. And I would say, if you're thinking about doing it, do it, because you will be so glad that you did it. And think of all the nurses that came before us that did it and were successful, and why not you?
Yeah.
Why not you? And I'm so thankful that I jumped and did it.
I think the one thing I would share that, I wish I would have known before I started, or might have even sped up me starting sooner, was the organization and the support of the faculty, and the way that this program is so geared to accommodating the real world and the real life. I attribute that, the commitment of the faculty, just as much as my commitment to my success and graduating when I did. Many things came in the way and competed for attention until it was my right time, and this was my right time, and I'm so glad I took this journey. In fact, I was so proud I bought a class ring. I have always wanted an ECU class ring, and I have not taken it off since the day I graduated.
Love it.
I wear it with pride every day,
Well deserved.
every day.
Well, thank you ladies so much for sharing your time. We appreciate you giving your perspective, because I know for a new student it's so helpful to hear from students that are doing it and have done it, and to kind of hear what this experience is going to be like for them. So again, I really sincerely appreciate your time. And for those that are going to be joining us, we are so thankful that you're here, and we want to welcome you and make sure that you have all the support that you need. So again, as the lady said, please do not hesitate to reach out and to communicate with us. We look forward to serving you over the next 4 semesters while you're a student in our RN-BSN program. Welcome.